Welcome to Healing Mindset, the space where awareness meets compassion. Today, we are stepping into the tender world of our inner child, the innocent, imaginative, and deeply feeling part of us that still longs to be seen and soothed. Joining us in is Vandana Atara Noorah, an intuitive empath and healer who has spent years guiding others to reparent the part of themselves they once had to abandon. Together, we will explore how reconnecting with our 5-year-old self can transform pain into compassion and broken pattern into pieces. Welcome to the show, Vandana. I hope you're having a great time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here with you.
Yeah. So, Vandana, the phrase reparenting your inner child feels both
Yes.
profound and personal. What does that really mean on an emotional and spiritual level?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Um, what it means is finally, after maybe lifetimes of generational wounding and trauma, is actually finding the parts of yourself that have been left behind, that have been abandoned or somehow left you. It's reconnecting to your childhood gifts, your childhood creative spark and innocence, your creative side, and all of the curious parts of your childhood that you haven't been able to express. So it's about reconciling with your inner child, making peace, and really getting to know and be curious about who you really are and all of the parts of you that you were never allowed to express growing up.
That is such a tender perspective. So
Yeah.
how can someone recognize when their inner child is calling for attention, perhaps through emotions, behavior they don't fully understand?
We can always tell that our inner child is feeling abandoned or silenced or censored or even judged or criticized by the way we're feeling. So it's very important to get out of our head and into our heart space and really into of the wisdom of every cell of our body to really explore um what our inner child is trying to communicate to us. What are the messages that we have forgotten? And usually it happens when we get triggered. So there are different stages and ages of our childhood, of our developmental years, even before we have language or words to express our feelings, that sometimes become um, shown to us so that we can really heal them. So there's a part of us that maybe our teenage side, right? Our rebellious side, that maybe is really kind of lashing out or fighting back against all the injustice. There's that part of us. So we could always tell that if we get into an argument or disagreement with someone, or if we have a problem with an authority figure or someone like that, and sometimes that person might remind us of feeling like we're 13 years old, right? And so we want to tell them off, and we want to, like, we have no filter. So that's how we know, okay, it's the 13-year-old in this case that's acting out, right? That's not allowing me to see the situation um in a more forgiving way, right? So then there's a 5-year-old that maybe feels invisible and unheard and unseen. And so maybe you're in a romantic relationship, and then there's that part of you that, feels like you're being cheated on or betrayed in some way, or that your love interest is showing more interest, for somebody else. Or
Mm.
maybe you're just feeling jealous or envious or not lovable enough. So those are all indicators that, it's something from the past is still not resolved. And that's why it's very important for us to take a look at that, because it could really taint and destroy our relationships. So we're kind of repeating those unhealthy, toxic patterns or the unhealed patterns again and again and again. That's just keeps playing out, over and over. So we need to get a handle on that and work through that instead of ignoring or denying that, hey, I think that there's a problem because I see that it's really hard for me to stay in a healthy relationship or to find somebody who finds me lovable, so it's very important to to speak about that and not to pretend that it's not real, because this affects the quality of your life. If your inner child is still hurting, it affects you because then you're still hurting. And then we know that hurt people hurt other people, right? And that this gets passed on from generation to generation. So, anybody who has like any unhealed or untreated wounds, stress, pain, trauma that still keeps playing out, you're not alone. And it didn't start with you, it started generations ago. So it's up to us to take responsibility and be that cycle breaker for our family. Because if you have inner child wounds and you can't seem to connect with your childhood nature, and you didn't even know who your inner child is and can't relate to that part of you that wants to just have fun, uh, then it's time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so beautiful how you frame it. And I think many of our listeners will relate to that. It's like our inner child within us is never gone. It is just waiting to be heard and to be and for us to realize that this is coming from our past experiences.
That's right. And there's no shame in that. There's no
Yeah.
shame. You've done nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just you're cut off or disassociated from a very important part of you, the part of you that fuels your creative life force energy, that gives you life, the part of you that is still hiding or frozen in time. So that part of us really deserves to be heard and recognized and acknowledged always.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
nurturing what's been unseen.
Yeah, I what I do when I work with my clients and in my live transmissions every week, I always kind of role play and I allow those parts of us that are still kind of mysterious or that we haven't connected with to have a voice and to speak their feelings and to express every everything that happened to them, and that we play the role of their parents so we can actually listen and give them all of the things that they never had, that they and tell them how lovable and beautiful and worthy they are. These are all things that we might have missed out on growing up, so we feel this constant sense of loss and loneliness, but we don't know why. And that could very well be a part of where it all began, that we can tap into. We can nurture and reparent and give that child back a sense of sovereignty and to empower them, because many times we're just disempowered growing up or we're ignored.
Yeah. So, like, you have often emphasized reconnecting with 5-year old version of ourselves. Why 5-year old age in particular?
This is an age that many of us we're starting to go to school, make our own friends and socialize and, get involved in education. We're like kind of separating from our parents' aprons strings. So we're kind of branching out and kind of finding ourselves. Um, so our 5-year-old is a very important part of who we are that we can reconnect with. Um, because this is the part of us that hasn't yet been tainted, usually by society. Also, Thich Nhat Hanh, who is one of my spiritual teachers, he talks about this a lot. He has a book about this as well. Yeah. So it's about reconciling with a 5-year-old child. And I think that this is where your spark is, your innocence, your true nature, your passion, your sense of curiosity and adventure about how the world works. So we want to get in touch with that part of ourselves. We want to integrate that part of ourselves, right? Into our adults, um, our adult identity. Because many times we don't even know who we are because we lost that part of ourselves.
So, do you find that many of our core wounds, especially around love, safety, and belonging, track back to an early age of development?
Absolutely. Um, I would say even in utero, because there's a lot of research studies and scientific research done about intrauterine trauma if we haven't successfully bonded in the womb of our birth mother, or if our birth mother also had childhood trauma that was never healed or resolved. So we're not only going back to the age of 5, but even before 5, you know, the developmental years when we didn't even have language, right? To speak our feelings, to express ourselves, especially in the womb. Yeah. So
That is
we really have to pay attention to that, those 9 months that we were developing. If we didn't have the nutrients, we didn't have, if there was some kind of like psychic vacancy, like we can call that a womb tomb, right? It was like a crypt, and it was like there was no life force energy or connection between us and our birth mother. Or maybe she was suffering or in fear in some way, or she was feeling abandoned or stressed about being a mother. So, yeah, we go all the way back there in my work.
that is
That's
the
really the first, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
first most important experience that we have in utero that informs us of, like you said, of safety, of a sense of belonging in this world, right? It's our roots, it's our first beginnings. Yeah.
and I never knew it starts so early in our life. Like even before we were born, that is so insightful and that is so new. And I'm very sure that most of our listeners are going to be astonished by knowing this, that it starts so early.
Yeah, because our brains start developing very early, our hearts, our spine, our nervous system, and we're informed by the environment, the intrauterine environment. So it's very important. That's when the bonding really begins, not after birth, but before birth. And I also take people on journeys, hypnotic journeys, where I allow people to pattern those wounds, even in the womb, when you might have felt like you didn't have enough room to grow. Maybe there were some complications, um, and you weren't in the optimal environment, health wise, to really develop. So there could be so many different issues going on, but again, it's all intergenerational, right? So it begins with our grandmother, not only our mother, because there are parts of our genetic material that are still passed on from our grandmother's womb. So yeah, I can go on and on, but it's very important to to bond, to really to remember like all those parts of you that you've forgotten, or that you were told you didn't weren't important, right? When you were growing up. And so you became socialized and domesticated and became someone or something else other than who you really are. So there are different techniques that I share with people, with my clients on how to do that. And it really is truly remarkable the testimonials that come in every day that this really matters. I mean, imagine really, yeah, this really makes such a big difference. And then we use different things like teddy bears, right? I have the client hold a teddy bear. Hmm. And that is just, it's so sweet. And it's just meditate, on a picture of their child at 5 years old or any age, just to reconnect with their essence, their true essence.
Yeah. So, like, many adults resist revisiting their childhood because of fear, shame, or the belief that they have moved on. So, how do you help people move through that resistance gently?
While I work on their energy field, number one, their aura, to just make sure that there are no blocks in their field. Sometimes there are these protector energies that think that they're protecting the vulnerable inner child. So we always ask for those protector like archetypes to kind of step away to give the client some breathing room and space to heal. So there's nothing to fear. They can really let their guard down. And this is all a process. This is all a process of remembering how it feels to be safe in your body. And so, yeah, there are many techniques. I use trauma tapping, EFT, role playing, many different ways. I think the most important thing is that many people are still in denial. That's why they're stuck.
Yeah, yeah.
They
Love
feel
empathy
stuck
and
and they
connect.
feel blocked, but they don't know why. And so, what most people do when they come to me is they're just so confused and they're so disconnected from who they are. They don't even know who they are. They're just clueless. They don't even know what they like doing or what brings them joy. So many people are just cut off from their joy. And because they're brought up to feel that they don't have a right to experience joy and peace and just the closure, a sense of peace and wholeness and closure, like they are enough. So it is a process that I take people through, but it's so well worth it because this is that really important work that many people are not experiencing because of fear. They have a fear that they're going to not be able to handle the pain or the sadness or the grief or the loss. But when you have a compassionate person holding the space for you, you really have to, um, you really can choose trust because many adult children, and an adult child is someone who never really recovered from the childhood trauma. We have a lot of issues with trust. So the main thing is just to help people to trust their intuition, to trust their feelings, right? And also to be given this rare opportunity to reparent, right? To become your own most loving and emotionally available parent.
That is a compassionate approach that you have towards healing. And the, f- and and is it possible to reparent without reopening old wounds too deeply, or like getting stuck in that
Yep.
pain? It is.
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely do not want to. There's no need to re-traumatize yourself or to relive the pain. What we want to do is repattern those energies to create a happier ending or a different reality so that people feel safe again and they feel that they're meant to be here, that their life is not an accident. So no, we don't want to re-trigger any old trauma. There's no need to.
And it is so encouraging for our listeners as well to know that they can face their past without drowning into that fear, guilt, and the pain that comes with it. That is so amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad that you feel that way and that you could see the value of this important work.
Yeah. So, Vandana, this has been such an heartfelt and amazing conversation with you. And for those who want to connect with your work and go deeper into this inner child journey, where can they find you?
Yeah. My website is my name, Vanzana. So it's vanzanalighthealing.com. And I have a YouTube channel with the same name. And also, you could find me on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So it's Vanzana Light Healing everywhere. So also check out my podcast, which is Adult Children in Recovery. Uh, so yes,
And
thank
I'm
you.
going to include all these details into the show notes. And thank you for sharing that with us. You bring such warmth and clarity to something so sacred. It is so amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
So, if this conversation touched your heart, take a quiet moment tonight to listen to that small voice within, the one that's been waiting for your warmth, not your judgment. Reparenting isn't about fixing who you are, it is about finally becoming the parent you needed to be. Thank you, Vandana, for reminding us that healing begins when love meets places we once left behind. And to everyone listening, stay gentle, stay curious, and keep coming home to yourself. Until next time, this is Nazish reminding you that healing isn't about destination, it is a relationship with your own heart.